And then we have the cures, because of course we're not doing the healthy work to solve the problem. No. As I said, we poison ourselves with toxic foodstuffs full of contaminants and then seek respite for our terrible inner discomfort on a physical level from a leviathan that administers nothing more than further poisons to us in the name of our health. Isn't that a symptom of our psychosis? But we want that, because what's it all really based on? The doctor's another daddy. Are you feeling better now, darling? Oh yes, doctor. You're feeling like hell, but don't irritate the doctor. Roll up the sleeve. They could tell you to do somersaults and bend over backwards and people will do it. Because that animus figure is very important. But a priest, pope, politician, doctor, tutor, you see, the whole 9 yards. The expert. Look, we're in submission to the expert. Everyone else is more powerful and more knowledgeable. And we've given our power away to the worst kind of sadists. Reverse pleasure out of that, don't you? So we all have it, but in the psychotic people it's very, very enlarged. That whole feeling that they get a deep and abiding pleasure. Because they have murdered their own selfhood. The person who's murdered their own femininity, or masculinity, or who have murdered their own selfhood, well, how do you think they're going to operate outside? How do you think they're going to relate to everyone else? They may have the persona so that they appear to be normal, but the person who has murdered themselves in their life cannot be expected to exist rationally. As I said, if the ego is the ghost that has arisen from the grave of the self, then expect it to act in ghoulish ways. If you leave rotten meat out, expect maggots. Don't blame the maggots. So the executives have not come in. Spirit is not there. Selfhood is not there. Selfhood has been murdered. And in its place we have something else. And from that we get masochism. Masochism is nothing but sadism to the self. It's just a fancy word for sadism towards oneself. And out of that comes horrors. Your narcissism, your obesity, your bulimia, the body piercing, the drug addiction, the alcoholism. All of this is coming out of a deep and intense violence towards oneself that must end if there's ever to be change in the world. And you must develop the science of observing it, not in others, but in yourself. How do you censor yourself? From that comes the sadism that we're familiar with. The war, the rape, the murder, the misogyny, the megadeath. All of that is a mere external version of something inside. And then it extends even from that point out to nature and to animals. But it's all rooted inside oneself. And what's the cocktail? Obesity, anorexia, insomnia, hypertension, obsession with appearance. My God, you don't have to turn on the television. Obsession with appearance and cosmetic. And then the fitness mania, which is nothing more than another form of sadism. Hard-bodied, as Wilhelm Reich would have easily shown us. And do you notice the mechanicalistic, monotonous repetition of the way that they even present exercise? It's not done in a very yin or organic way. Even the exercise machines that they show you are demonic. And the message that they're sending you about what you think health is meant to be. Routine, mechanical, movements of the body, totally anti-organic and anti-feminine. And there's so many of those. Why? Because they're selling you a message. And the depression and the ADD and the delinquency and the addiction. And look what's buried in the middle of all of that. The chronic dependency. The key. You can't be anything unless somebody else has given you approval. And mostly you don't get the approval, so as the psychologists well know, look what then happens to us when we don't get it. Look what then becomes of us and what we start doing when we don't have that approval from somebody. Look what we turn ourselves into. Now, anxiety is an interesting word. It's used a lot. It's different than fear. Anxiety comes from the German word Angst. But the psychologists in Germany were saying, look, fear is the word that means when you're being attacked from outside. It's the emotion that you feel when there's a legitimate physical attack. Angst is very different. Angst is from within. When there's something about yourself that's in disorder or malaise. That needs to be borne in mind. What we're having today when we talk about anxiety disorders is all rooted in what I've been talking about. And then we have the cures, because of course we're not doing the healthy work to solve the problem. No. As I said, we poison ourselves with toxic foodstuffs full of contaminants and then seek respite for our terrible inner discomfort on a physical level from a leviathan that administers nothing more than further poisons to us in the name of our health. Isn't that a symptom of our psychosis? But we want that, because what's it all really based on? The doctor's another daddy. Are you feeling better now, darling? Oh yes, doctor. You're feeling like hell, but don't irritate the doctor. Roll up the sleeve. They could tell you to do somersaults and bend over backwards and people will do it. because that animus figure is very important. But a priest, pope, politician, doctor, tutor, you see, the whole 9 yards, the expert. Look, we're in submission to the expert. Everyone else is more powerful and more knowledgeable. And we've given our power away to the worst kind of sadists. The state that is achieved when we cease being sadistic and punitive with ourselves, when we desist seeking the approval of others, when we free ourselves and others from the tyranny of our dependency. There are also factors involved here in the listening to these incredible parts of us. I'll just say, as controversial as it is, and the psychologists actually should have taught you this a long time ago. And the New Age movement, that's defunct in my opinion as well. Because they have not said what I'm going to say now. And that is, you can get out of your mind any idea that anger and hate and violence have ever caused any problems on this earth. Except when they, as I said, become pathological. But actually, we better wake up and realize that not hate, not anger, not violence has ever caused any of them problems that are on this earth at all. And anyone who believes that has got a very, very limited understanding of the world that they're living in. The problems are caused in this world, ladies and gentlemen, not by those things, but by false love. Now, of course, we don't even have that. Deal with your dark content. We barely have the time to do the laundry. We barely have time to catch some sleep or take care of our kids, which is by design. That's stress again. In fact, the 4 best-selling drugs in the nation today are for stress-related health problems: ulcer medications, hypertension treatments, tranquilizers and sleeping pills, and antidepressants. As a nation, we spend an astonishing $650 million per year on sleeping pills alone. 4 million Americans abuse prescription drugs and are addicted to tranquilizers, stimulants, and painkillers. You know, when I first visited this country, I knew something was wrong, because when you turn on commercial television, I'm watching advertisements for the most contaminated foodstuffs that you could possibly imagine, and the next commercial is about the medical, getting something to fix it. Some poison. I went, what is wrong with this picture? It's okay to vaccinate yourself and eat contaminated foods that a dog wouldn't eat. Because why? Well, we got a doctor that's going to fix it. Now, many of us sense that something is missing from our lives, and that in our hectic existence, focused on getting pleasure and spending, on having more and achieving more, all these acquisitive drives, we've come to neglect our emotional well-being. Now, one of the other problems why what I'm talking about is often not, dawned on a lot of people, is because, you see, cruelty to others is, in fact, well documented, obviously, right? The Hunt for Serial Killers, all the movies about it, the Quest for Justice, all the programs. And of course, in physical cruelty, when somebody's beating somebody up or murdering, you can call physical police, and you can go to court, and you can get physical, in-your-face justice about it. But when it's cruelty to the self, who's going to notice? When it's sadism to the self. But my God, cruelty to the self? If you identify with the Father and the prohibitive aspects overly, then you are a walking criminal to yourself. And I am myself personally, you see, not concerned very much with the utter form of crime. I think it's interesting to study. The study will go on, and it's been recognized. We all recognize it. I am infinitely more interested in the unseen form of cruelty that each person does to their own selves, and that must be studied. If you've embodied it because your parents have been rotten, that's probably where it might originate. And they learned it from their parents and so on. But it must stop. For instance, the mystical, remember we were talking about the healthy yogas of the ancient world where they were trying to, condition out the alien gene. Now today when you feel you're not still enough, you don't have any peace, they even sell you that. So now you're thinking some guru on a bed of nails somewhere, some exploiter, another predator, is going to teach you what you need to do. Because you don't feel that you can control your mind or you'll be still enough. You know all that kind of yoga? It's nothing more than sadism to the self. It's another, I'm not good enough, need to get to God, tell me what to do. And I impose another authority on me. I impose another system or technique. Perhaps one could say that the only healthy form of yoga is the hatha yoga, which is just physical exercises to keep the body kind of healthy. Okay, I can accept that one. But see, most of the other ones, it's nothing but the same old sadism we've been talking about under another name.